Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Teruvan Saranai, dear Dhamma friends. I am Venerable Damita from Podgulgala Aranya in Kegor. The topic of today's reflection is Virtue and Precepts. This is yet another fundamental aspect of Buddhist teaching, which determines one's practice goes according to the Lord Buddha's wish. If I give you a definition for these terms, the virtue or sila is a habit, an acquired habit of discouraging, restraining harmful behavior towards both oneself and the others, while encouraging good qualities in oneself. It is a process of purification or detoxification, if you like, for our actions by body, speech and mind, otherwise defiled by kilesas. Precepts, on the other hand, are guidelines of training. Sikkhapada, we say in Pali. They are like boundary markers. They are the reminders for us to be in the territory of kusala, which we can take up as a practice for our day-to-day training of the mind. Keeping 5 precepts is the most fundamental kind of all sila. It covers the most common pitfalls of the human mind. Now, once a person becomes skilled at keeping sila, the virtue, become more natural. You begin to understand what sila truly means, the common principles behind all these silas, which is summarized by this well-known verse. Sabba papasa akaranam, kusalasa upasampada, sacitta pariyo dapanam, etang buddhana sasanam, which means the non-doing of anything bad, undertaking of what is good, the purification of one's mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Now when we look at the suttas, we see how Lord Buddha emphasized the importance of sila. He says, sila is the precursor to the Noble Eightfold Path. Like the dawn in the morning is the prelude to sunrise. Arahant Venerable Dhammadinna in Chula Vedalla Sutta shows how the Noble Eightfold Path can be understood in terms of sila, samadhi and panya, the threefold training. So the right speech, right action and right livelihood belongs to the sila training. The Lord Buddha says the following actions are setbacks in one's training. What are they? Destruction of life, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, taking intoxicants. And then he says something very interesting. In order to abandon these 5 setbacks, 4 satipatthanas are to be developed. How should we understand this? Once we practice these precepts, that indeed requires mindfulness, sati. So sila needs mindfulness to be around. Any of these practices, after all, cannot function in isolate. And suttas say vice versa too. The purpose of keeping sila is to develop satipatthana. So the virtue and mindfulness goes hand in hand, helping each other, which in turn nurture various other qualities in one's mind. Lord Buddha explains this practice in different slants. He sees keeping precepts as a great gift one can give to the world. By abstaining from those 5 wrongdoings, one gives freedom from fear, enmity, and affliction to countless number of beings. This is a great gift, says Lord Buddha, one can give to all beings. It's an ancient, long-standing tradition which is not ever disagreed by the wise. Another common analogy to Sila given in the suttas is purification of mind. Lord Buddha compares it with how goldsmiths refined raw gold. According to that simile, soil, grit, and gravel are the gross defilements of gold. Similarly, he says, the person aspire to a higher mind, bodily, verbal, and mental misconduct are the gross defilements of mind. Now, how exactly this purification works? One has an understanding of which direction we supposed to take, the right view, away from craving towards letting go, in simple terms. Therefore, one knows what are the things to be avoided. And we supposed to contemplate in this way. Contemplate towards letting go, towards kindness and compassion. Now, by contemplating like this, makes mental checkpoints, if you like. In other words, mindfulness is around the corner, waiting to serve you. With your daily encounters, the mental objects present in your mind are checked against your views and principles you value. The mental objects which doesn't agree your values will be alerted against by your sati. And then you know how to move away from such things. You develop strategies to keep away from unwholesome. So when Lord Buddha says it's a purification, it means it's a purification from craving, hatred, and delusion. Keeping these precepts means, in other words, surrendering oneself to Lord Buddha. We give up what we want and simply follow what Lord Buddha says. This practice alone itself geared towards lessening sense of self. The precepts gradually recondition you towards a better, compassionate, and happy human being. And that's the benefit we all aspire for, aren't we? Lord Buddha compares Sila to wealth, Aryadhana, and it is something very nice to grow old with, he says. You have kept your precepts for a period of time, you have matured with it. Now, since keeping precepts involves mindfulness, that means keeping them makes you sharp. You think more clearly and swiftly. You know how to improvise when the situation demands it. The quality of life goes up. You become successful in both materially and spiritually. That's the first benefit you get, keeping precepts as a layperson. And you become a confident person. Your self-esteem goes up when you engage with people. They can be your peers, subordinates, or superiors. You have your confidence. This is the second benefit, Lord Buddha says. And your relationships with others, your family, your friends, colleagues, improves naturally. Your good qualities inspire people. They too tap into your confidence and kindness. The good word about you spread around. This is the third benefit, says Lord Buddha. And having understood clearly the basics of the Dhamma, one sees how one suffers. The person with right attitudes and mindfulness experience the easing away of the one's dukkha and the increase of the baseline happiness. When one reaches to the end of life, they are not confused or sorrowful towards death, because now they understand it's perfectly normal to die. This again, Lord Buddha says, is benefit of keeping sila. And as the fifth benefit, Lord Buddha says, one who dies mindfully is bound to a good rebirth, of course, if he or she hasn't realized Nibbana yet. Let me talk about the challenges we often meet when we keep sila. The biggest challenge is our own thinking mind, discouraging us practicing precepts, because it's about going against one's habits. As the Ajahn Brahm's good old saying goes, pushing wheelbarrows is easy, thinking about it is the hardest part. Thinking about how am I going to keep the precepts is difficult than just keeping it in this moment. The thinking mind comes up with various logical scenarios. What can go wrong when keeping 5 precepts? One might imagine helping somebody at the cost of one's precepts, or situations like choice between welfare of many or the welfare of an individual or a minority. Most of these thought experiments are hypothetical scenarios, and people who have been keeping precepts know that this type of thinking cannot comprehend how a real-world situation actually unfolds. Each situation is unique and new in the detail level, and if you adhere to the principles you believe, if you are creative, if you can improvise, you will find a way to keep precepts while dealing with day-to-day life. There may be a very few cases in which you might fail. It's alright too, samsara is imperfect. As long as you try your best, you can't go wrong. We have to remember, like with other practices, keeping sila is also a learning process. Along the timeline, you develop your strategies and means to keep the precepts, and you get better and better at that. And those nagging what-ifs are no longer an issue. The keeping sila is not an isolated practice without a support. In fact, Lord Buddha says what are the qualities conducive to keep sila. Like for all other practices, good friendship, kalyana mittas, is the first and foremost in this regard. You inspired by good friends and start to practice precepts on your own. And keep practicing sila again needs good friendship, because the actions we do almost always conditioned by others. And contemplation, yoniso manasikara, is also a very important support for sila. You relate to your daily experiences according to Dhamma principles you already know. You compare them, you investigate them, trying to see the consequences. This is yoniso manasikara, this is right contemplation. The right contemplation then gives rise to these 2 qualities, the conscience, the sense of shame, and prudence or sense of moral dread. In Pali we say hiri and ottappa, and the sense restraint also follows it afterwards. You have a sense of when to stop. You are not afraid to say enough is enough to your mind. Then restraint happens. And we understand that the mindfulness, the sati, is always at the background. So all these mentioned qualities, one by one, develop towards as a support to sila. Without these supporting qualities, we will never be able to stick to this practice of precepts. And one might ask, what's next? What's beyond sila? Remember I mentioned earlier on that sila supports satipatthana and vice versa. There's a chain reaction, if you like, happening when you have been keeping sila significant amount of time. There are many suttas explaining this sequence of events. It goes like this. The sila leads to non-regret. Then it is to joy, rapture, and tranquility. Tranquility leads to pleasure, sukha, both mental and physical. And pleasure leads to samadhi. Samadhi leads to knowledge and vision, which is panya. And finally, the panya leads to liberation. So when Lord Buddha says sila supports satipatthana practice, that means by nurturing sati and other supporting qualities, especially lessening one's tanha, now one is ready to enter to samadhi, which is a natural course of sila and satipatthana practice. Then the rest happens one after the other. So let me summarize some key points from this short talk. The practice of keeping precepts leads to broader understanding of doing good, the sila, the virtue, and the precepts are guidelines of training. It makes a groundwork for other aspects of the practice, and it's a precursor to the Noble Eightfold Path. And Lord Buddha says it as a great gift we can give, You do get the benefit of this practice in this very life. That's the sanditthika quality of the Dhamma. It nurtures the mindfulness, samadhi and panya, which means your meditation practice starts to take off with the practice of sila. It has its supporting conditions like good friendship, right contemplation, mindfulness, etc. It's a training and a learning process. One might fail sometimes, but the important thing is one keeps on practicing it. And it's a voluntary practice like the rest of the Eightfold Path. Once you know the danger of the sickness, you start to take the medicine. Nobody, even Lord Buddha, imposed this upon us. He points out the downside of these actions and asks us to take responsibility for our own well-being. Thinking about doing is the hardest part. Doing itself is rather simple. You only keep sila at this very moment. But when we think, we anticipate something not quite real. As the concluding remark, I would like to bring up one more thing about this practice. It's simply, what do we value? Do we often value and vision ourselves as a virtuous person, a person with good ethics? Or is it only about being a successful person? As Lord Buddha says, it doesn't have to be one or the other, but it's a matter of shifting our own values to accompany that moral creature to our own ideals of being successful. So I would like to offer these Dhamma reflections as an encouragement for you all to keep up the good work you have been doing so far. May the merits accumulated through our practice lead us to live a life with joy, and may we understand the Four Noble Truths in this very life. Thank you for listening. Theruvan Saranai. Abhivadana Silisa Nichang Vadha Pachayino Chattaro Dhamma Vadhanti Ayuvanno Sukham Balang Ayurarogya Sampatti Sagga Sampatti Mevacha Atho Nibbana Sampatti Iminate Samichyatu.